As a child, I regularly attended the Perth Oval in Highgate to watch waffle games, specifically the East Perth Football Club. What was then a simple oval is now a stadium used for an entirely different sport. Near the 1930s heritage-listed gates, I always spotted a monolithic structure in the distance and wondered what it was. On the surface, it turns out to just be an ornate ventilation stack for the sewer network. But as per usual, the story turned out to be far more interesting the deeper I dug. The design is stunning, considering its utilitarian purpose. Considered a prime example of interwar Art Deco, the Lincoln Street ventilation stack is the only brick and render tower of its kind in Perth. It was built in 1941 by the Metropolitan Water Supply, Sewerage and Drainage Department. 250,000 bricks were used during construction, and it's apparently the second highest sewers vent in Australia, standing at a mighty 38 metres tall. That's what its heritage listing states anyway. According to Inherit, the tallest is 40 metres tall and can be found in Sydney. It doesn't say where exactly, however, just that it was built in 1893. Everyone else uses that as a source of information, so I never discovered where exactly that tower is located. Back to Lincoln Street, its purpose was to vent acidic gas that was corroding the concrete-lined sewer pipes below. It was built on Highgate Hill, an elevated part of the sewer network, with the ventilation fans kept in the attached machine room. This plan was on the experimental side, however, and it did not work as intended. For one, the extractor fans in the machine room rapidly corroded from the production of hydrogen sulfide. But even worse, if the weather was unfavourable, the stack would disperse the gas over the local neighbourhood instead. The structure was often called the Monument to Hitler, because it stank. That's a direct quote from the heritage listing. As you can imagine, this garnered a few complaints, and operations were cancelled after only 4 weeks. The tower's connection to the sewer network was sealed over with concrete, and a similar planned structure in West Subiaco was cancelled. From here onwards, it received the nickname of Demar's Folly. Russell Demar was the chief engineer at the Public Works Department during construction, so he copped the big L. Don't feel too bad for him though. He had an accomplished career otherwise, with highlights including the Canning and Wellington dams. He was even knighted. This was not to be the end of the story, however. In 1941, the police wireless service moved into the Highgate police station next door, and the tower was put into use as a radio antenna. The equipment was concealed within and kept a secret, however, as it would have been a bombing target because of World War II. It's also thought that the Commonwealth Department of Defence used it for wartime communications. The truth wasn't to be publicly revealed until 1956. The now repurposed antenna tower then saw continued use until 1975. Even to this day, you can still see antennas on the top. For the radio nerds amongst you, the call sign was VKI with a license number of 1258. That's not to say it wasn't still used by the operators of the sewer network, however. In 1952, someone was designated the awful sounding but probably important role of analysing sewerage. This was carried out in the attached room of the tower and was a first for the department in WA. But from 1961, the police department would start leasing the room. To this day, the room is still used by the police department for training, as well as a meeting place for the WA Police Historical Society, whose headquarters are next door in the old Highgate police station. In 2007, the stack was finally listed with the National Trust of Australia and the State Register of Heritage Places. This should ensure its continued existence and will be admired by Art Deco, sewer and antenna enthusiasts for generations to come. It appears that the Historical Society also uses it for storage. As per their minutes for a July 2022 meeting, everything was to be cleared out and placed into a skip bin. Except of course for ex-radar holder plastic boxes that could have their inner foam removed and converted to hold photographs. I've always wondered what it looks like in that little room since the windows are blanked out. I might see if I can organise access with the Historical Society if there is enough interest, but in the meantime, there is a written description by Sally Lake on the Inherit listing. She was given a tour by a policeman, and beyond the ex-machine room turned classroom and meeting place was a low cupboard door. Behind that was a short tunnel that needed to be crawled through. That led to the inside of the tower, with a concrete base about a foot below that included random objects such as a bicycle. Looking up, the walls tapered in and included metal rungs to aid in climbing. It doesn't sound like she went up, however, and who can blame her? The Lincoln Street ventilation stack is a fascinating example of Perth's original sewer network. there's a lot more to be found around the metro area too. For instance, this smaller sewer vent can be found nearby in Hyde Park. This dates from around 1911. Personally, I find this old infrastructure interesting. Do you? If so, sound off in the comment section, and I'll see what I can do.